We are back, everybody. What's up? It's Line Movement. It's the pre-kickoff show. And you know what that means. It means Joe Holka. That means Peter Overzet. And we're talking through the entire slate today. DFS perspective, betting perspective. We're going to touch it all. But you know these guys. You come here for the DFS stuff. So we're going to hammer that home today. First off, Joe Holka, how you feeling, baby?
I'm good, man. You're sealing my lines a little bit, but I like it. The first thing I saw in the chat was, is it too early for mimosas? I would say it's never too early for mimosas. That's kind of where I'm at. That's directly where I'm going after lock, if that gives you any idea on where I'm at.
I've been drunk for hours, so I feel like it's plenty of opportunity to get mimosas in. You got to catch up, folks. Come on. Peter Overzet, how are you doing, and what's going on with your hat right now?
I'm just messing with it. I got my Dolphins hat on. I thought it was going to be the Laird's day, but he had to die for our Gaskins, apparently. But it's going to be a good slate. It's been flipped on its head 19 times. We're going to get that mad money. I also want to say, when you said we are back at the beginning, it was as if like Joe had paid you $100 to weasel in his signature catchphrase, but you were really reluctant about it. You're like, we are back. There you
didn't
go,
fully
Joe
commit.
Holka.
You didn't fully commit.
Yeah. I committed in the chat. I got out all of my We Are Back juice in the chat, and I need to save it. We got to spread it out over the next hour. We don't need to go all in on We Are Back. I'm trying to temper myself a little bit because this is a weird slate. It has been turned on its head multiple times in a row. It's just tumbling down a hill, this slate. And let's start it off with, let's say, Colts and Texans. It's a 50.5 point total. The Colts are 3.5 point favorites. I have no idea what to make of this game because, as always, I have no idea what to do with Phillip Rivers. I don't think the Colts know what to do with them either. So here we are. Let's start with you, Joe Holka. What are you making of this game? Do you have anybody from this game? And how do you feel about the lines?
Yeah, one of the chalkiest players on the entire slate is going to be Brandon Cooks. And Peter and I would imagine, are on the same page that he makes a fantastic fade overall. I think that like the target share makes sense. Obviously, no Will Fuller there. Like the volume increase like that we're going to see probably for Cooks makes some sense. I have some big time concerns for this offense overall without Will Fuller. I think that anytime you have an elite field stretcher like him, just taking pressure off of guys like Cook, guys like Kiki Kute, I think it's a big problem overall for Cooks, who's never really been a number one. He's someone that, yeah, the price is right based on if everything goes well. I just think that this offense as a whole could take a step back. I think that if Brandon Cooks ends up running some more of those vertical routes, maybe Kiki underneath, maybe Akins underneath, end up, I guess, paying off their price tag. So I think that that is kind of the big conversation here. Pete's trying to talk me into Jonathan Taylor at running back. So we'll see where we end up. This game's going to be relatively popular overall, but I think it makes for a reasonable fade on the Houston side. Are you with me on that, Pete?
Yeah, for sure. I'm pretty much off of Houston other than Akins. I think we got a nice bit of cover with Anthony Ferkser opening up here as another punt tight end. Akins was going to be like 25% owned before that happened, and now he is going to be lower owned than Ferkser. So I don't mind Akins, but I agree with you. I think Cooks and QT aren't my kind of chalk. The thing that's interesting is week after week, we have the Colts with one of the larger implied team totals on the slate, and no one wanting to roster these guys because it's hard to identify where the production is going to come from. I like taking stabs at Michael Pittman, and I like taking stabs at Jonathan Taylor, but this is a hard game to stack because Rivers is dusty, and you don't want to be eating that Houston chalk. So I prefer to play some one-offs or mini correlations here.
Joe, is it an easy game to bet, though? Are you feeling the Colts at -3.5?
I think so. We heard LaMarcus say it earlier in the week that all the sharps were heavily on the Indy side. So I know we've seen a little bit of movement since we recorded that show on Tuesday. But yeah, I think the Indy side pretty significantly. I'm just not really, I think that if people think they're going to see this same Houston offense that we've seen over the last few weeks, I think might be in for a world of hurt.
Well, that would imply that we're going to go under 50.5. That's a lot of points there, Overzet. Like, are you not vibing with that?
Yeah, I would lean toward the under. We kind of see those trends too with the second divisional games between opponents. I was looking, Kevin Cole had posted some stuff about Deshaun Watson's EPA, expected points added with and without Will Fuller. I mean, it's a massive, massive drop off. So for people to think that these other guys are just going to step right in and keep the offense functioning like it was, I think is a little bit wishful.
84% of the cash is in on the unders, and yet it's still above 50. So that's telling you something, that there might be some interesting stuff out there that we haven't quite taken into account just yet. But you know what? We'll ride with it. We're figuring it out on the fly. Lions and Bears.
Oh my!
I don't even need to set this up. Is it Trubisky week, guys? Is it true? Are we in on Mitch Trubisky this week? Who's doing it? Who's playing Mitch Trubisky lineups this week?
Go ahead, Pete.
So early in the week when like pricing first came out, I was like, oh, Trubisky's going to be sneaky. This is going to be nice. And then all of a sudden he became popular. David Montgomery became one of the chalk running backs. Allen Robinson's going to catch ownership. So I get it. But to me, you want guys like Mitchell Trubisky with the super high volatility when they're low owned. You do not want to play Mitch Trubisky as chalk. So I don't have any lineups with him now, but I get it. We've seen him have really big games, specifically against the Lions. It's a good spot. He's cheap. But it's kind of hard to build stacks with him in a way that get you leverage. So I don't know with you, Joe. Are you messing with these guys at all?
I don't think Trubisky is like necessary. I do think that now that Allen Robinson has looked like he's going to be, I guess, relatively healthy. I think that's an interesting stack. But you said like I'd rather have Trubisky when he's going to be super low owned, and against this Detroit defense, that's not going to happen. It's like play everyone against Detroit at this point. I think I get that side of this argument. I mean, I still like David Montgomery, Pete. I think that like I might be a little bit higher on Montgomery than you are. I know you're pretty heavily in on Gaskin and that same price range. But I like Montgomery a lot. Like since Tariq Cohen's went down, just 3 down plus goal line roll. I think that like the problem with him is he any good? The efficiency, all of that stuff. But I mean, this Lions defense is dead last by a significant margin at defending the run. If you care about that, I care about matchups at the tails, not so much in the middle. But this Detroit defense has just been a complete disaster. So David Montgomery coming off of that concussion did look like he had a little bit more burst last week. But yeah, his quarterback is Mitchell Trubisky. So how many touchdown opportunities is there going to be in this game? I still think he's pretty good chalk at 5,500.
Listen, Trubisky going up against a man-to-man defense. Detroit can't change stuff up even after firing Matt Patricia. You have to stick with what you've already done that's gotten you to this point that got Patricia fired. They can't go to a zone, become a zone defense all of a sudden after a couple of days. So what does that mean? Trubisky's going to have opportunities to run. And while I can totally understand where you guys are coming from the DFS perspective, I love Bears -3.5. And the total on this one is 44.5. I don't know how I feel about that one per se. I usually go over on a total that low. But, Joe, you did say earlier that Trubisky might not be necessary. He's never been necessary. So I don't even take that into account. I think you're saying ride Mitch Trubisky, ride the Bears, because you're definitely not getting on the Lions bandwagon. Jaguars Vikings 50.5 point total, 10.5 point spread for the Minnesota Vikings. We go to our boots on the ground. Joe Holka, what is going on? Are people all in on Minnesota now?
I like this game a lot. I think people are starting to realize how well Kirk Cousins has been playing lately. He's been one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league, especially throwing deep. He's got these playmakers. Obviously, Adam Thielen coming back from the COVID list is a big boost for this passing game overall. But Justin Jefferson just continues to ball out each and every week down the field. And that's what we want to see from a fantasy perspective. So in this one, I think that, against the Jaguars, I actually don't hate that Mike Glennon is going to be quarterback. He looked at least serviceable last week to move this ball up and down the field. Minnesota's defense still not very good, but it continues to be like one of the more condensed offenses in the league. Dalvin Cook, a little bit banged up. He's very expensive. So he's someone that I don't think is just a stone lock by any means. I was hoping his ownership would come down a little bit. It's kind of hovering around a similar price or a similar ownership level as Derrick Henry. I think I do still prefer Cook in this spot against Jacksonville, but I'm just really interested in Cousins, Thielen, Jefferson stacks, bringing it back with either Robinson or Chark on the other side. What do you think about this game, Pete? Am I too high on Kirk Cousins? I rarely play these guys that don't run, but I do think it's a good spot.
No, I like it. And a lot of my initial concerns about the Vikings ownership earlier in the week have started to go in the other direction that have made me more interested in them. What's interesting to me is Jefferson and Thielen are both going to catch a little bit of ownership, but Cousins' ownership has been going down. So I think people are going to play them maybe as one-offs, but maybe not super popular in stacks. And similarly with Dalvin Cook, earlier in the week, we had concerns about his ankle. He was projecting at 35-40% ownership. We thought maybe Alexander Mattison would be back. Now we have Alexander Mattison out with appendicitis. So Mike Boone is going to be the guy in relief. I think we project 20 plus touches for Dalvin Cook. He was off the injury report on Friday. He's good to go. And the ownership is dropping down as people fall in love with the big dog. Devontae Adams is going to catch ownership up there. So I am now more willing to take some one-off stabs on Dalvin Cook and stacking Kirk Cousins with one of the receivers and you toss in Kyle Rudolph, another guy who is going to be popular, but the Firkser and Aiken stuff is providing cover for him. So yeah, I'm with you. They have the biggest implied team total on the slate, almost 31 points. There are going to be points here. And I think we want to attack this in as many ways as possible. And I'll also co-sign on DJ Chark. I think he's one of the best low-owned mid-range wide receiver plays this week.
This is not a sneaky game to you guys. This sounds like this is a straight up go after it sort of contest. I think for a lot of people, they'd look at it and say, ooh, kind of sneaky, but you guys are both seemingly all in. I got that right, Joe?
I like this game a lot. I think that like someone that I definitely have some regrets about this year is James Robinson. Just like the volume this guy has been seeing like throughout this entire season. Like I haven't been there, and he's been, I guess, a little bit higher owned than I thought these last couple of weeks. And I struggle with these guys. It's always just going to have like a really low team total overall. But like there's very few guys on this slate that we can project for like 22 plus touches, and he's one of them. So I like Robinson a lot. How do we feel about Chark's health, Pete?
Good to go. I haven't heard anything to indicate that we should be worried about him. I think he's ready to rock.
Cool.
10.5 is a big fat number for a Minnesota team that I wouldn't describe them as explosive. I think that would be an excessive term. We have 50.5 on the board as a total. So clearly Vegas thinks that there are going to be points in this game. 10.5 is a lot, and the Jags like to keep it feisty. Is anyone in on Jacksonville in this game? Can I get a Jacksonville vet from you, Peter Overzet?
A vet from Overzet. Yes, let's do it. I will. Yeah, I'll take Jags with the points here. I think Joe can attest as a classic Minnesota homer that they let teams hang around in these games. Their secondary isn't anything special. I haven't even mentioned James Robinson. Also, this guy who perennially is in the same price range, same ownership range, and yet has this voluminous workload. Getting out my thesaurus today, feeling good, fellas. So yeah, I'll take the points with the Jags here and hope for this shootout game.
What is the concern that Cook? He's kind of coming in banged up. They're going to hand it to him, the first 20 plays of the game. That we might end up getting a Boone situation because Cook can't handle it. I mean, is there any concern about putting Cook up that I don't know if he can finish the game? We know he's going to start it. We know he's going to get a lot of work, but in the meantime, it's the NFL and he's just taking a beating. Joe, is Cook too big of a risk to play in this week?
I still like Cook a lot. I think that if you just look at it, like a lot of like projection systems out there are still like you're taking Madison into account, like that he's going to have some percentage of this workload anyway, but it just doesn't matter because Minnesota runs the ball so much. I think the concern is the ankle, like he comes back and isn't used kind of as we normally see him being used throughout this season. So I think the price is the concern. I was hoping that we get Dalvin at a little bit lower ownership, which has kind of had me gravitate towards his passing game a little bit more. But I still like Cook. I think that he's still a lock for like 20 plus touches.
Feels like a fade spot to me. Just throwing that out there. I leave the expertise to you guys, but it feels like a fade spot to me. Browns and Titans. It is the play action Super Bowl. Browns and Titans. Titans 4.5 point favorites at home with a 52.5 point total. Can I get anyone interested in a Baker Mayfield stack? Anybody at all? Overzet? What do you got for me, baby?
Can't get me interested in a Baker Mayfield stack, but I do think this game is pretty interesting. Again, the Titans have a pretty big implied team total here, 29 points. Derrick Henry, the big dog, going to catch a ton of ownership. I'm a little worried about it at this price, at this ownership. I think there's a decent amount of risk, but it also presents some nice pivots here. I think both the Browns running backs are pretty nice spots. Nick Chubb has been crushing lately, but Kareem Hunt's really cheap, 5,400. And if you think the Titans have a lead, we could see Hunt playing on passing downs more. And then AJ Brown continues to be just the perfect pivot off of Derrick Henry. He's always expensive, so he doesn't catch a ton of ownership, but I mean, no one needs to be sold on AJ Brown's yards after the catch ability. Can just take any ball to the house. And if you were to stack Baker, which I am not, I think Jarvis Landry is fine at 6,200. He's been a target monster here of late. They're past all their bad weather games. So yeah, I like this spot. I think I'm just playing like one-off and mini correlations from this game, but I think there's going to be some points to be had here.
Joe, do you disagree?
I like this game. I think this might be just a tough day for me overall because I've been back on the Derrick Henry train, which is like, I guess, historically really punished me and it's worked out. Now I think I'm going to kind of take my money and run a little bit. And I think I'm going to be a little bit light at that price tag at 9,200 for a guy that doesn't catch passes. Like, I understand it. It's December, all that good stuff. I'm going to be light on Derrick Henry today overall. I think that the passing game on Tennessee is super interesting. Peter said it. AJ Brown, 7,600 is expensive, but Tannehill is one of those plays that I think is super interesting in the spot against Cleveland. Clear bringbacks on the other side. I'm with you. I think that Chubb is interesting, but I also think that Kareem Hunt is very underpriced at a little bit lower ownership too. So no issues going back to Jarvis Landry. I think that there's, they've been battling through tough weather in like most of these games over the last 5 or 6 weeks. Yeah. So we finally see them in good weather last week. It does end up being a spot you needed in the millionaire maker with Baker, which is crazy, but Landry's fine at his price. I think his target share even could be larger if they weren't battling through some of those weather games.
Pete, if you had to choose between one of you have to take one of these Cleveland running backs. You can't take them both. Yeah. Who would you prefer?
Right now I have more Kareem Hunt in my lineups. I'm kind of playing I'm buying the dip on the price, and the kind of long-term trends with these two is their workloads are much closer together than what we've seen in the past week or two. I get it. Nick Chubb has been the dominant guy in the backfield, but I'm going to bet on the long-term trend. I think the price discrepancy, almost $2,300 or exactly $2,300. That's too big. And he's not going to be owned either. So I like Kareem Hunt a lot, but I think they're both really good plays.
And you were going to say, sir, I did interrupt you.
Oh, I was just going to say one little interesting thing. I always like checking out over at ETR Brandon Thorne's offensive line, defensive line mismatch. He has Tennessee as having an offensive line mismatch here with this Browns D line. That's enough for me too to get a little bit worried about Derrick Henry at that price and ownership, and also making me want to consider the Browns defense at 2,500 on DraftKings is kind of a sneaky play. So I just use that as a tiebreaker, and I think it was a little relevant and interesting in this spot.
How do we feel about the 4.5 points that the Titans are getting at home? I think I'm in on the Browns here, but I'm willing to hear other opinions. Joe, what do you have in terms of the betting action on this one?
Yeah, so it looks like some of the sharp money's coming in on Tennessee overall. Yeah. I'm kind of conflicted. Like, the Browns are a team that I've kind of struggled with a little bit this year because, like we mentioned, the weather stuff that's been going on, I've been kind of staying away overall. I don't know if one big game from Baker Mayfield is enough for me to really get back on that train. So I think the Tennessee side, I think they're a better team overall. I think this time of year, they can just control games in ways that I'm not sure that Cleveland can.
Okay. Overzet, you got any thoughts on the total?
Cleveland. I'm going to take Cleveland with the points.
Let's run. Let's roll, baby. Saints and Falcons. They just played. It didn't go well for Atlanta. I still feel that pain every day. It is a 46.5 point total, 2.5 point spread for the New Orleans Saints, who are not starting a quarterback. They have a wide receiver halfback thing going on there. Atlanta coming off of a nice win against the Raiders. I'm all in on Atlanta. Again, I will just keep riding this. Taysom Hill's not good at this sort of a thing. But that's just me. That's my personal opinion. I want yours, Peter Overzet.
Yeah. We're fighting. We are fighting now. For DFS, I like this game. It continues to stand out. It's gaining no ownership steam whatsoever. Okay. My guy, Derek Carty over at RotoGrinders, he has the blitz projection system. He's known to be a little enamored with Michael Thomas, these dome games. He has Taysom Hill with a massive ceiling projection, Michael Thomas with a huge projection. Things line up for Michael Thomas. He's had a huge target share over these past 3 games. He is in a really nice spot against the Falcons secondary. He's carrying no ownership. He's cheap at 7,000. Part of me wanted to galaxy brain and get onto Alvin Kamara. I've been talking with Michael Leone, who we're putting together a lineup for our Tilt Space show later tonight. He's in on Kamara. My thought is just, you're not getting any leverage on Michael Thomas because no one's playing him either. So I just prefer Thomas straight up at the same price. And I think this is a place to skinny stack it. You could do Taysom to Michael Thomas and then pick your flavor with Ridley and Julio Jones. All reports are that Julio was banged up, but that he should be good to go. So
What's
I think
new?
So I think both of those guys are viable as bringbacks. I like this spot.
We only have about 10 minutes until you're in active corner. So save that kind of insight and analysis for 10 minutes from now. Holka, are you in on the Saints too? Are you buying what Sean Payton is selling?
I'm with Pete. I love Michael Thomas. I think that the Kamara thing it's so nice from a price perspective and an ownership perspective. I just don't know if the ceiling is there. Like literally there's two reads for Taysom Hill. He's either going to throw it to Michael Thomas or he's going to run. And I don't think there's really much in between that. So Michael Thomas there's been games where he's just had such a large target share overall that I think he's the play here. And I'm with you. Like maybe we could talk ourselves into Kamara if like Michael Thomas is going to be like 20%, which I don't think that's the case. So the bring back on the other side is one that I think is a little bit tougher. I wish Julio was going to be a little bit lower now that he's coming in. His price on DraftKings, 6,600, I think is going to catch some eyeballs for sure. Like, Pete, do you have a favorite bring back? Like these Julio eruption spots seem to come out of nowhere, right? But I don't know. I don't play Calvin Ridley enough, probably. I guess the touchdown upside is probably bigger with Calvin Ridley, but do you have a take on the Atlanta side?
Yeah, what I'm seeing, ownership is going to be similar on them. And then, Calvin Ridley, 600 more, but I prefer him just heads up there. I think if there was a bigger price or ownership gap, I'd be happy to take the lower own. But if I get to choose and break ties, I'm gonna do it in Calvin Ridley's favor. He had 9 targets last week and a touchdown. I think he's the alpha there now, and I think this is a nice spot at home.
46.5 point total. That's not that hot. That's not that. You guys are talking up this game like it's a 52, a 53, a 54. What are we doing here? Taysom Hill's still the quarterback. I think you guys have gone full galaxy brain on this game. Have you
looked at that you get too bogged down in your real life takes. Have you seen Taysom Hill's fantasy stat lines the past few games?
Yeah. Well, the last 2 games, luckily he ran for a bunch against Denver. I think he had less than a. I'm aware because he's
you like playing running backs at quarterback, like guys that are just going to get you 80 on the ground on the ceiling side of things, and they only throw to one guy, so you know who to pair him with. Yeah.
No, listen until that doesn't work out for you guys, and then you're just totally screwed.
Let me ask you guys a question here. What would
Jordan.
this over under be if we had Breeze back in the saddle, or I'm not talking about Jameis, but if we had our standard expectation here for a December Saints versus Falcons game, do you think this is outside our expectations at 46.5? Because like typically, we're wanting to play everybody in these games because of the Falcons defense, or do you think that people overrate how bad the Falcons are on defense and how many points they give up? Overall, is my thoughts.
You guys don't get any say in this. I have something to say. It's the latter. It's the latter. People are completely underrating Atlanta right now, in my opinion. I think that they got something going with Raheem Morris. Now, he won't be hired as the head coach, but he's been doing a damn good job. And he's a damn good defensive coordinator, and they do have some talent on that side, and they're starting to buy in a little bit. This total will be 51-50. Let's just say 51.5. Let's split the difference if Drew Brees was here, because you would know that Alvin Kamara was going to get touches. Like the dude actually reads the field. And no, you wouldn't have any of the running ability, but that offense is a well-oiled machine with Drew Brees just taking the snap, no lacing it to people left and right. So I would go 51.5 if for no other reason than Atlanta would have to kind of get some garbage time points back, because the Saints defense is pretty good too. But, I'm willing to hear other opinions on the matter.
I don't know. I don't really have a take on this one. Go ahead, Pete.
No, I don't either. Like this isn't like I agree. It's not a, soaring over the 55 total. I think we're just being very concentrated on a few of the guys who have proven to see big volume in these spots. And Michael Thomas and Calvin Ridley check those boxes for me. So even if it stays under 50, I think both those guys can still have big games.
Listen, I understand everything you guys are saying, and I appreciate it. No, I do. I do. I understand it. I appreciate it. Let me put it to you this way, Peter Overzet, because now we're beefing. I still have to put money down on one of these lineups. This is still quasi betting, and I'm not putting my money on Taysom Hill, period, full stop. That's a principle thing. I know this isn't the era for principles, but I still have some, and I'm going to ride him down.
I'm taking a photo of you right now just so I can remember this smug moment, and I'm going to send it to you when Taysom Hill pops off and wins me a GPP. I got it.
Okay. Well, listen, you will have plenty of. You should send it through like courier mail. You should have it delivered to my house, printed out on a nice glossy 8x11. There it is.
There it is.
That's a pretty great photo, by the way. Thank you. I might make that my Avi. All right, Raiders and Jets. Less time spent on this, the better, right?
No. I love this game. Come on,
Overzet, go.
These are my favorite weeks when Dieter just like dismisses a game that we're talking about all the morning.
Go. Yeah. Go. Joe and I were literally going back and forth this morning about how much we love this game for fantasy.
How's that working out for you?
Look, attacking the Jets defense in fantasy has worked out wonderfuless.
Yes,
We've done it with the Chiefs. We've done it with the Chargers, and I don't see any difference between Derek Carr and Patrick Mahomes. So I don't know why this wouldn't work out as well. But the thing that I like about this spot for the passing game is Devonta Booker, who I think is just perfectly fine. I don't think he's a absolute smash. I don't think he's bad chalk. I think he's just fine at his price and ownership. But Waller's ownership is really coming down now with all of these punt tight ends opening up. And you're going to get the best tight end on the slate at 10% ownership in a really good spot. The Jets secondary is honestly atrocious. So I love getting Aguilar, maybe even Ruggs in there. And yeah, I think the bring back options with Perriman and Mims, both big play down the field receivers, make sense as bringbacks. Joe, tell Dieter he's drunk.
So many plays in this game, man. You're just going to straight gnaw away of it. It's like, I guess we just saw Derek Carr in like their worst game of the season. But before that, like this offense has been absolutely humming. I mean, we've got a ton of plays here to talk about. Yeah. So I'm with Peter on kind of the bringbacks for sure. I think it's pretty clearly Mims or Perriman. I prefer Mims, higher weighted opportunity. I think Perriman's probably a little bit safer in some regards, but Devontae Booker, I mean, he's just insanely cheap. I think that Booker is Leone's guy over some of these other cheaper running back options in this one. So I think that Waller, you're basically just rostering a wide receiver in your tight end spot. If we can get straight gnaw away of the tight end position, I'd prefer to do that. And I actually thought that the ownership was going to be a little bit higher on that one as well. So I think there's a ton of opportunity here. I think it's pretty easily stackable in a game, I guess, on the Raiders side that, I mean, Vegas still thinks there's going to be some points scored here overall. So getting back on Derek Carr the week after people were kind of going there, I like it from an ownership perspective as well.
Well, isn't Booker just going to be chalk? I mean, how is everyone not going to roster Booker? They don't have a backup to him. The Raiders love running the ball, perhaps at their own detriment. Like he has to be in your lineup. At the same time, what kind of market advantage are you getting if he's in your lineup?
The thing that was interesting is earlier in the week, he was going to be like 40% owned because we didn't have any value on this slate. Him and Montgomery were going to be very popular in that range. With Gaskin coming back, he is now pulling, basically, 10% of ownership from both him and Montgomery. So now they're all going to be around 20% owned. And I like them all a lot more at 20% than I do having one of them at 40%. So I'm still going to have Booker in some lineups. But Joe and I were talking about this earlier. I'm not going to have Booker in my Derek Carr stacks. I'm going to play the passing game in scenarios where he flops in those situations.
You guys all feel good about a Derek Carr stack, huh?
Like $1 million.
What a world. I do think it's a week though where like you might not have to have those guys that give you rushing ability because it feels a little bit tighter at quarterback overall to where maybe it's a gross slate. Maybe you get there on a guy that throws for 3 touchdowns at kind of a cheaper price tag. Like we're focused on these condensed target shares and that sort of thing a little bit more than some of these one-off plays because we're playing mostly tournaments and that sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, Booker, we've seen it before with I guess this backup running back walking in to the same role that Josh Jacobs has had. And I mean, 20 plus touches for Booker is pretty much a lock at this point.
No doubt. Listen, I'm in on the Booker play. I just don't know if there's much of an advantage there. And certainly I'm in on Waller, but it's tight end. I think Waller makes a lot of sense, but as a one-off, I couldn't possibly in good conscience play Derek Carr, but that's just me. That's just a personal, choice. Again, principles. I'd like to note that 80
photo of you. I will now I'll have 2 on you, but should we get a Derek Carr photo to go with the Taysom Hill one?
Yep. All right, might as well get a collage going.
There we go. I got the finger wag.
89% of the money line bets are in on the Raiders. Anyone want to take the Jets to win this game straight up? Anyone want the Jets to win their first game of the year?
Adam Gase doesn't even want the Jets to win, so how can I take them to win?
Clearly.
All right, 7.5 point spread on that game, 46.5 point total. You know what? I think we need to fly through space and time. I think that the galaxy brain needs to go back to its proper home in the vacuum that is space.
A few minutes for the inactives to come in here.
They're not done yet? They're not ready at 8:30 on the dot?
They're due right now. This is like a teacher saying the papers are due at 8 and then Dieter being like, let's show how she graded them.
Dieter's in a mood today. He's really raring to go.
I guess. I don't know.
People are saying you're just straight disgusted right now with this entire show.
I want to fight over that with my fit.
People are me. I am saying that.
No, listen.
I would fight you, and then I remember that you're like 1.5 feet taller than me, so I'm going to walk it back.
And I've been packing on the LBs during this holiday season. Bengals.
Like, Jake Paul versus Nate Robinson, you and me going in there.
That's that makes me Jake Paul, which I don't appreciate either. So now we're going to fight even more. Bengals and Dolphins, only a 42.5 point total on this game. Wonder why. Dolphins 10.5 point favorites. That's a lot of muck to have to sift through there to find some value. But listen, we might get Myles Gaskins back. We are getting Myles Gaskin back. We'll find out, I guess, in just a moment. And Peter Overzet's an active corner. Joe, who do you like in this game, though? Do you like any Bengals? Can I interest you in any Bengals?
I'm sad because I really wanted Fitzpatrick in this game because I think that overall, like, it just would have made this game so much easier to decipher from a fantasy perspective. Like, easy stack with Fitzpatrick. I mean, I guess the Gaskin thing kind of throws a little bit of a wrench into this overall, but T. Higgins was the guy on the Cincinnati side that I was on as a pretty clear bring back. He's just very cheap on DraftKings overall. But now with Tua, I have more concerns for sure. He's someone that hasn't been moving the ball down the field like Fitzpatrick does, doesn't take the chances that Fitzpatrick does, also doesn't check the ball down as much as Fitzpatrick does. So I know that Pete's on Myles Gaskin, a lot of sharp people talking about him, of course. I actually have him behind Booker and behind Montgomery at that similar price point, which is probably not where you want to be because that's going to probably be where the higher ownership is also. But Pete, tell me why I'm a fish and how I don't want to play Gaskin over those two.
I don't mind it with Booker. Well, here's the deal. Let's tie this into an actives corner. What do you say? What do you say we do this?
Do we want to fly? Do we want to fly through space and time and let the galaxy brain reach its initial point at the center of the universe, coming out of a black hole of daily fantasy information? We're putting on the hard hat.
Right. Yeah, I got to protect myself.
The cold vacuum of space will be fixed by only a hard hat and a man who hand builds his own lineups. It's time. Or is it? Give him a second here. It's time for Peter Overzet's Inactive Corner.
Bumpy ride here, entering the inactive corner cosmos. Lots of crazy stuff going on today. Isaiah Coulter is inactive for the Texans. There was rumors that he might be the guy to see the big bump without Will Fuller active. He is not playing. This means Kuki Kati, that's not how you say his name. Things come out differently. Jordan Akins, they might see a few more targets today. Otherwise, there's not a ton of things that we haven't already covered. For the Dolphins, basically all of the running backs are out. No Savon Ahmed, no DeAndre Washington, no Matt Breida. It is just Myles Gaskin and my guy, I don't have that shirt on, Patrick Laird. Just those two in the backfield today. Elsewhere, we know DeAndre Swift is out. We know Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't playing. The guys who are questionable this week, Allen Robinson, Julio Jones, Todd Gurley, they are all active and good to go. That has been Inactive Corner. I'm ready to return to Earth.
Well, it was splendid as always, sir. Well done. Good. Well done. I appreciate that you're still building lineups despite not having air around you. Just walking through space, building your own lineups. This is how America gets it done. This is why we were first in space. Damn it. Technically, we weren't. Anyone want to take the Dolphins minus 10.5 here as we try to bring it back to sanity?
Where do we go from here, Dieter, after that one?
I don't know. I mean, there's more games, but honestly, and pretty good ones if I'm being totally frank, but not sure how we beat Inactive Corner. It's literally the best part of the week. How about this? Does anyone want to play Laird? Does anyone want to just do it? Come on, Pete. You have to have one lineup with him in it.
I always do. Actually, my DraftKings lineups come default with Laird in the flex.
They just know. They're just locked in.
Here's the thing. It was gonna be Laird Day if Gaskin was not active. The team has shown a commitment to using Gaskin as a bell cow. Even when Gaskin was out, they did it with Ahmed. Laird is gonna work in and get some passing down situations for sure. I mean, they're not gonna give Gaskin 30 touches, but I think this is a 20 plus touch spot for Gaskin here. And I do think he's still my preferred play of those mid-tier running backs we have been discussing.
All right. Do we see any upside whatsoever in Tua? I mean, he did have that good game against the Cardinals. I get it. There's a murkiness. I mean, hell, Fitzpatrick might even play. given the thumb injury. Holka, can you be talked into any Tua plays?
Not really. I think there's enough plays out there. If I'm considering like Derek Carr, I'm probably just not playing Tua.
That's a great point. I'll give you that one. Let's talk about a good game. Rams and Cardinals, 48.5-point total. Rams, 2.5-point favorites on blitzbet.eu. And by the way, blitzbet.eu is a very good website, and we recommend that you use it. I don't know what to make of the line on this game. Does anyone know what to make in DFS? Let's go with you, Overzet. What are you thinking?
Yeah, this game's interesting because both of the Rams wide receivers, Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, they are underpriced relative for their role and their projection. So they're going to catch a lot of ownership. It's a good spot versus the Cardinals secondary. But other than that, people aren't super interested in this game. I think in a lot of other weeks, even some of the ancillary pieces like Josh Reynolds and Andy and Isabella would be more popular. But people are so down right now on the Cardinals' ability to facilitate these shootout games like we saw earlier in the season. They're worried about Kyler Murray and his shoulder and his lack of rushing of late. To me, this seems like a good spot to go back to the Cardinals here. You play Kyler, you play Nuke, you maybe toss in Isabella, and then you can bring it back with whichever of those Rams wide receivers you prefer. And when you do that, you're really only capturing a lot of ownership on that one play with the Rams wide receivers. Everything else is going to be good. Joe, am I crazy for wanting to go to the Cardinals here?
I like this game, man. You're not going to catch any pushback from me trying to be heavy on the Cardinals, obviously, but these are the spots where we want it. Like, I mean, Kyler, everyone wants to talk about his shoulder, but I mean, if he is healthier and we do see like that rushing upside from him, some clear guys to go to at lower ownership in this game, some clear bringbacks on the other side. I think that this one makes a ton of sense. If you did just want a skinny and just not play Nuke, I think that's probably fine too. On the other side, like, I guess I'll ask you this, Pete. I prefer Cooper Kupp over Woods. Cooper Kupp is someone that against this type of defense, playing a lot of cover one, has had a ton of success overall, almost double the target share of Woods. But just overall, we know these guys are pretty much split down the middle. The price tags are right. I was hoping they'd be sneakier than they are. Obviously, those are the chalky pieces in this game. So any bring back thoughts on the Rams side?
Because you're not getting a big price or ownership discount on either, I think you just pick your favorite. So I have no problem going with Cooper Kupp there. I do like that this game is the late game because you can make some of those decisions. If you have one of those guys in your flex, you can go down. I was messing with builds where I could maybe go to Chris Carson in the flex if I needed to go more contrarian, or if I was able to eat the chalk, I could leave Cooper Kupp in the lineup there. And I also don't mind Josh Reynolds if you are kind of game stacking that and want to get some leverage on the other popular guys. We've seen him do this, right? It was against Seattle where both of the other wide receivers were really popular and Reynolds had that big game. People in the chat talking about Isabella at 3,200. Yeah, I mean, how is this spot any different than last week against the Patriots when he was super chalky at this same thing? To me, it's the same spot. So if you liked Andy Isabella last week, you should like him just as much this week. I think he's a fine play.
He has 2 touchdowns on the year, though, guys, and they all came in one game. I know it's kind of a punt play to a certain degree, but is Isabella at some point just no longer worth the squeeze? I get the idea of him. At some point, he has to come through, right, Joe?
Yeah, the thing I like about Isabella is some people are just going to look at the box score there and see that he kind of had a dud performance when a lot of people were on him. But he did leave like a 30-yard catch on the field that was just out of bounds as well. So it could have looked a little bit better. Obviously, the price hasn't moved. I'm with Peter. If you liked Isabella last week, there's no reason to like him this week any differently. And I mean, probably like him more because he's not going to be as highly owned. So I'm in on that.
Hang on, quick, guys. Yeah. John in the chat just told me there are 436 people watching this and only 50 likes. You should be disgusted. You know what I'm doing? I'm taking a picture of the chat right now. That's what we're doing. We're taking a picture of the chat to shame you guys for your lack of likes. That's all we asked for around here, some likes. I went to space and back for you people, and you can't like and subscribe to the channel. All right, I'm back, Dieter. I'm sorry. I lost my cool there.
We used to be adversaries, but we are now united in this fight. To get
that was enough for 2 more people to like the video. Nice work.
No, they're coming. They're about to start streaming in. Just you watch.
Thank God. Thank God.
Look at that, Pete. Attaboy. 81 likes. We're on a little bit more of a delay today.
100 likes. We just hit 100
Look
likes,
at
ladies
us.
and gentlemen. That's what we need
Look
to
at
do. We
all
need
these
to
likes.
flame the chat more often. I like this this direction we're taking the show in.
All we have to do is just shame our audience, which is everyone wants to be shamed when they come here for their information and perhaps even entertainment. Anytime someone can go to space and back, though, you have to respect it and you have to hit that like button. Joe, any concern about Kyler Murray, like just not running it, not wanting to run it anymore because of that AC joint? I mean, you're a guy who loves playing the running quarterbacks. Their entire offense is sort of predicated on Kyler Murray just running around and doing cool Kyler Murray stuff. He's not doing that anymore. And I don't think that was the Patriots defense that was sort of locking him in because their defense isn't that good. Are we out on Kyler Murray? I know you're not personally out, but if you could take off the Joe Holka Arizona Cardinals fan hat for a second, can we have an honest conversation about where Kyler Murray stands? Because they need to win games. They're handing back this playoff spot like week in, week out. They need to win some football games, and he needs to run the ball for them to win, in my estimation.
I think this kind of thing, especially like an AC joint, like it's so easy to like re-aggravate that type of injury. Like just the slightest little hit, he can be back like a week and a half in terms of like the progress he's made. So I'm with you that like if this is a team that is hoping to be a playoff team, that like he's got to get that thing right or it's going to linger. I think it's more of a price and ownership thing. If we think Kyler Murray is going to be like 15% owned and he's 8,700 on FanDuel, he's also very expensive, 7,600 on DraftKings. That's where I care about it a little bit more. But if we think he's going to be like 5% in some of the stuff that we play, Pete, in the smaller fields and higher stake stuff, then I think it makes a ton of sense. So I don't care as much about the narrative versus where the ceiling is if we're wrong about how healthy he is. You know, maybe he's more healthy and this is the game where he kind of gets back on track with his legs.
It kind of goes back to what I was touching on with the Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb thing. We all fall prey to these 2-3 week samples. And yes, sometimes there is signal within that. My buddies Ben Gretch and Pat Crane were actually talking about this situation on our Ship Chasing channel earlier. And it's like, we just have to trust the long-term trend with what we have seen with Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins here. Kyler Murray's off the injury report. I get that there might still be some concerns. I get that we're worried about Jalen Ramsey or not, but I don't think much has changed from earlier in the season. I think maybe a little's changed, but not enough for this ownership to swing this far out away from us. So I'm ready to go back to Nuke and Kyler here.
Anyone want to take some Cam Newton play? I don't know why the hell I brought that up. I was thinking about the Cardinals and the Patriots, but we'll talk about that in a second. My bad. Giants, Seahawks. Don't tell me that you guys like this game too.
Russ is cooking. Is Russ in our lineup like currently in the 4-4-4 right now?
We haven't built it yet. No secrets. We can't be tipping our hand before lock, Joe.
This is true. There's a lot of people watching this right now that are going to be the 4K entry tournament, so we probably shouldn't tell them what we're playing.
It's literally only saboteurs in the chat. That's why they didn't like it. They're just trying to find out what you're doing as to be able to fade you. All right. We know that the Seahawks are you're going to have some Seahawks play. Like, right? Like DK, Russ, talk me through it. Talk me through it there, Pete.
Yeah. So, this isn't a game that you're excited to stack, but I definitely want a Seattle piece. I mean, the whole question here is, do you think Colt McCoy is that big of a downgrade from Daniel Jones? I don't think it's a huge thing to where this game is just going to completely go south. The hard thing for me, I was talking with Leone about this earlier, is what to do with Metcalf versus Locket. Normally, you know me, grown-ass man, let's just jam it here. But now we have DK Metcalf, who's $800 more expensive than Locket. He's going to be double the ownership. And if you want to get in the weeds with your wide receiver cornerback matchups, he's going against James Bradbury here. I know some people like that. So if this game happened 4 weeks ago, Tyler Lockett would be 30% owned in this spot. People have been like, the Giants, DK's on an island over here. It's a Lockett game. But now people have been burned so much by Russ not cooking and Lockett not doing anything of late that I don't hate the Lockett play. I don't mind any of their studs, Metcalf, Lockett, and Carson, but I'm probably playing them as one-offs or with a skinny stack, Joe.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that like this full stack situation, they're so expensive. It's hard to do it with the price points. Maybe if you wanted to go like Gallman on the other side to kind of leverage some of these cheaper running backs, I think I'd be into that overall. But I'm kind of with you on Lockett. This feels like a spot where maybe we've talked, I guess, made fun of people enough about these wide receiver cornerback matchups. Like people are just going to jam in Metcalf at 8,200. I'm like kind of starting to go the other way a little bit on this one. Interesting game. Like, do we, I guess, see Chris Carson just take over again like they used to play? I don't know. That's, I guess, the big scare. are they going to let Russ cook overall? And then if they aren't going to let him cook, these guys are way overpriced. So that's kind of the dilemma, I guess, with this game.
Carson was questionable earlier in the week. Pete Carroll said he was dealing with soreness. He's off the injury report now. I think
he'll play.
Should be good to go there. I think Carlos Hyde is still going to work in and get some touches, but I don't mind Carson. I was having a hard time deciding between Locket, Carson. I think if I skinny stack with Russ, I do prefer Metcalf, but I don't mind Locket and Carson as the one-off plays.
That plays. Okay. That makes sense to me. All right, let's talk Eagles. Let's talk Packers. Packers 7.5 point favorites, 49.5 point total in this one. We start with you, Joe Holka. What's the play?
You said Packers, right? I missed that for a second. It cut out for
Eagles and Packers. So a very sad Philadelphia Eagles team against a
very sad,
just a bouncing Packers team. A Packers team that perhaps has too much confidence going into this game. I can build a narrative for you, but you need to build a lineup. So tell me who's in it.
Yeah, so my biggest problem with those Aaron Rodgers lineups has to do with Carson Wentz on the other side. So I watched a decent amount of that game last week, and Carson Wentz just literally has the yips right now. I don't know what's going on with him. He looks like he's lost all confidence, has no touch whatsoever. He looks like he's playing for his job and failing completely on his face. So I think that Aaron Rodgers, why this is scary is because it's such a good spot. Aaron Rodgers is someone that literally can put his foot on someone's throat when he feels weakness and score. He literally gets throw 4 touchdown passes in the first half. Like that's within the range of outcomes against this Philly team. My concern is like you leave yourself no outs whatsoever is if this game gets to the third quarter and maybe like a couple of those touchdowns don't come through the air, then you're in a lot of trouble with Aaron Rodgers as chalk. I like playing Aaron Rodgers more when he's lower owned. I think this is one that like if you wanted to just go naked Aaron Rodgers and hope the touchdowns don't go to Davante Adams, I think that's interesting in some tournament spots because Adams is so expensive and we've seen Rodgers throw some of these like really short touchdowns to others as well. I don't really know what to do with this because I think so little of Wentz right now that this game I think carries a ton of volatility for fantasy.
Peter?
Yeah, this is a gross spot for the Eagles. I saw someone in the chat saying Rager bring back. I really wish I could say that, but I mean the Eagles, that you could listen to their coaches. They had quotes how they love this wide receiver rotation. They want to force targets to Alshon Jeffrey, who has literally broken the dust meter. I can't even register him on the dust meter. He broke it. So I'm worried about the Eagles here. I wanted to get excited about Miles Sanders at low ownership. Jordan Howard's now active. So not only is he going to lose goal line stuff to Howard, we've seen it in the past, he's also losing passing down work to Boston Scott. I know Miles Sanders can still break off big plays. I think he could get there, but I just don't think you have to get that thin on today's slate. Davante Adams is interesting. It looks like he's going to catch about 20% ownership. Yeah. I think he might come in a little underneath that. Like if you're playing Dalvin Cook or Derrick Henry, it's going to be really hard to afford Davante Adams at 9,000. I guess we could see some builds where you could flip it. You know, if people go expensive running back, cheap wide receiver, if people are going the mid-range running backs, you can't afford Davante, but I'm still into him. And man, Aaron Jones, like he's kind of one of those guys we say, when do you want him? It's when he's under 10% owned. This is a great spot, and it looks like he's coming in just at about 9 to 10% ownership. He's one of my plays I'm starting to really gravitate to here leading up to lock.
And that'd be really saucy if the Packers do open it up early, and then you have to hand the ball off from there on out. And listen, it can go a bunch of different ways, but I would like Jones in that spot big time. Plus, let's just say it is interesting. I'd like Jones then too. So I think I'm in on Jones with you there, Peter. 7.5. Anyone want to feel the Eagles this week? Anyone want to get the Eagles plus 7.5 at Lambeau Field? You both are looking at me like I just asked you to do. Peyote.
Not a chance.
Okay, cool. The total 49.5. Anyone have any thoughts on the total at 49.5?
Go ahead, Pete.
49.5. I'll take the under. I have so little faith in these Eagles right now.
As well you should. Patriots and Chargers. Boy, you want to talk about little faith. Anthony Lynn still in charge in Los Angeles. How about that? You can do anything you put your mind to, folks. 46.5 point total. Chargers 1.5 favorite at home. Pat's having to fly across the country. You know how I feel about stuff like that. That said, I did see the Chargers run pass protection on a quarterback sneak last week. So I don't know why I'm believing in anything they're doing, but you guys love Justin Herbert. So talk me through it. Anyone taking some Charger stacks this week? We going with Herbert and a buddy?
Well, I mean, the best play on the slate is Austin Eckler, and he'd probably be the best play on the slate if he was like $800, $900 more expensive still. Like last week, we were happy to be in on Eckler early overall, played 72% of the snaps, 31% target share. I mean, 25 touches in that game. So this is another great spot against this Patriots team that's really struggled with passes behind the line of scrimmage. One of the worst teams in the league at defending that area of the field. So Eckler is in just an absolute smash spot at 7,100. So he's my favorite play in this game by far. If you don't want to do mini stacks with Jacoby Myers on the other side, I'm totally fine with that. Pete, what do we think about Herbert ownership wise? Do we think that he's just not going to carry much ownership overall? It seems like there's not much talk about him. I understand that like people like don't want to play Keenan Allen because of the narratives between just like the Patriots taking away the top option, that sort of stuff. I love Eckler, but I'm open to a Herbert stack if you're in on it.
Yeah, it is weird because I look at the ownership numbers, and I mean ETR has Justin Herbert at 11% owned. That seems a bit high to me. And to your point, anecdotally, I haven't heard anyone talking about Herbert to Allen or Henry at all.
Yeah.
So I think they could come in under owned. And if you do want to get unique around Eckler chalk, I can't recommend just full fading Eckler. He's such a good play, but you could maybe toss Keenan in there. Or if you did want to fade him, I think you could go to Keenan and Hunter Henry. I think that's kind of interesting. Keenan's going to be one of the forgotten men up in that higher price wide receiver range. And I like the Jacoby Myers call as well. He would be the only guy I would really mess around with on a bring back. There's not too much appetizing to me on the Patriots side outside of him.
Nobody likes Cam in this spot. Who knows what the Chargers are, but like Cam sometimes has good games.
Yeah, I was a little worried. He was on the injury report all week with his abdomen stuff, but he is nice price. We know he has the ceiling if he gets the rushing goal line rushing work. So yeah, I don't mind it. Like if you want to do something like a Cam Skinny to Jacoby and bring it back with Keenan or Eckler, I think there's merit there.
I can get behind that. Listen, I know I'm asking a question that shouldn't have an answer because this game is all sorts of weird, but anyone want to take the points in this one? Anyone want to take the Patriots plus 1.5?
I mean, the Chargers just find ways to lose games, right? So I don't think that's a horrible take at all.
Okay. 46.5 point total over. Does that tickle your fancy in any way, shape, or form?
Lean me over there on those points. I could see some points scored, and I like Joe's taking the Patriots with the points there on the road.
All right. Before we get to best plays of the week, so that's the slate, folks. I just want to get some clarity here on a couple of questions that were posed in the chat, and we're going to bounce all over here. So stay nimble. Pete, get into your galaxy brain space. Adam Thielen or A-Rob this week, Joe Holka? Adam Thielen or A-Rob this week?
Feeling for me, I just want to be overweight on the Minnesota passing game overall. I think that A-Rob is in a great spot as well, but I want to be overweight on what Kirk Cousins has been up to, even though the volume is a little bit scary. I think if people aren't going to play Thielen because he's coming off the COVID list, I think I want to be early on him.
Joe? Sorry, Pete, thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with him on Thielen over A-Rob, although I'll also say I think I slightly prefer Justin Jefferson. But yes, Minnesota wide receiver over A-Rob.
I already know where you stand on this one, Joe, and that's why I had that little slip there. So let's go to you, Peter. Kupp or Woods for the Rams?
Kupp or Woods? I prefer Kupp in a vacuum.
Okay, fair enough. Ridley or Julio? We already talked about it, but let's go over it again. We start with you, Peter Overzet.
Yeah, I'm going to go Ridley. All of these are pretty interesting situations because the teammates, they're so close in price and ownership. Mm-hmm. So you can play your preferred one. Yeah, give me the healthier guy in Ridley.
Are you with him, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll say about Julio is he's like so cheap. Like even on FanDuel, the price difference matters. So if you get in a spot where you still like have a little bit of a mini stack there overall with Michael Thomas, and I think you can still figure out ways to get in Julio just to make other things in your lineup work.
All right, and then this is for the richest of the rich: Henry, Cook, or Adams. You have to take one of the three: Henry, Cook, or Devontae Adams. Who are we taking? Let's go with you, Joe. Not giving me any time to think.
Cook for me.
Okay, Cook. What do you got, Pete?
So this is do. I all I want to do is tell you what I'm actually doing in my lineups. I've built 5 lineups. This feels very scary to say. Right now, I have 0 Dalvin Cook, 0 Derrick Henry, and 2 Devontae Adams. So Devontae Adams for me in that equation.
Well, we're all rooting for you, buddy. Let's go through the best plays of the week, and we're going to start with Peter Overset. What is your best play of the week, my friend?
My favorite play of the week right now is Michael Thomas at 7,000 in the Dome versus the Falcons at low ownership.
Yeah, okay, we're back to fighting. And Joe Holka?
I'll say Austin Eckler, top scoring running back today.
All right, give me the Falcons plus 2.5.
That's a spite pick.
Nice.
That is a spite pick, but you know what?
I like the Falcons defense a bit. We didn't talk about that. They're super cheap.
Well, no, we're not going to do that. No. Now this is fully a spite show, and the next show is going to be me and Peter Overset boxing on YouTube. So looking forward to that. Though I did see one of those fleets one time, buddy. You can throw him a little bit. I appreciate it.
Fly? Come on.
Peter's low key jacked. You didn't know this, Dieter.
Yeah,
He's ripped.
Yeah, no, I'm
So
low
is
key
Nate
jacked.
Robinson.
It's just hidden. It's just hidden. Yeah, no.
The guy's a foot taller than you.
Yeah.
Nate Robinson shows up there with a 16 pack on his chest and just got flattened by some punk. I don't know. I don't want to hate you, buddy, but ultimately, all of the things you said today hurt me in a personal way. So we'll deal with it. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out next Sunday.
Now that we're getting personal, I did see that photo you posted outside your dog. Just not that cute, Dieter.
It's valid. It's valid. It's valid. It's valid. He's not that cute. What he is an asshole. So that's fine. We're ending the show now. Hit the like button if you like me and Pete just slinging barbs back at each other and Joel Holka just sort of watching.
Hey, Dieter, before we end the show, hey, Pete, what's going on later today? I think it's like a little bit after 6. What's on the docket?
Don't tell people about that thing. I don't want them watching that show.
Yep. At Tilt Space at 6:30, we're going to come on and we're going to be taking Taysom Hill and Derek Carr victory laps, just absolutely dunking in Dieter's face. It'll be like Vince Carter against with the French dude, the 7-foot guy he dunked over.
Timothy Vice.
Dieter, could you dunk? Could you do that? You tell people how tall you are. I don't think they actually know that you're, not like 6'2".
I could stand up, but there's a lot of leg happening.
Don't stand up. TOS. We'll get kicked off the platform, I think. Have a great day, guys.
No. Okay, we are at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. We are going live. Maybe we go live a little earlier today. We get a little antsy. We are playing a single bullet. Normally we build 3, 4, 5 lineups. This week, one team in the $4,444 contest. Super smooth payout structure, 200,000 up top. We are getting off the call now in building a 200K winning lineup. Tune in 6:30 p.m. Eastern on this channel.
I hope you sweat like you've never sweated before. That's what I hope for you. And Joe, I hope you have a very lovely day and that you're extremely successful.
It's good, man. I'm just chilling watching you guys argue back and forth. I think it just gives me times to build lineups. Sometimes it gets a little bit hectic on Sunday morning. So you guys just go, I build a couple teams, and then I guess come back after you guys are done, and then we keep moving.
We can only agree on one thing, Peter Overset, and that's that you should use blitzbet.eu for all your betting needs if you're north of the border. We agree on that. Everything else, not so much. All right, folks. Thanks for what might be the last pregame show of the season because one of us must die at the end of this. No, I don't know. We'll talk next week. Have a good one. Tilt Space later.